The great chamber of the Galactic Council was silent. Stars shone outside the wide glass walls, but inside the room a cold tension filled the air. The elders sat in a circle, ancient beings who had lived longer than some civilizations. Their faces were calm, but their voices carried fear. They spoke of a new danger, a small world at the edge of the galaxy, a world called Earth. For centuries humanity had been ignored. They were seen as young, fragile, and divided. They were considered too weak to matter in the balance of the stars. Yet the elders had seen visions. They spoke of fire and rebellion, of warships rising from the blue planet, and of voices that refused to bow before the great empires. One elder raised his voice, slow and heavy with warning. If humanity is left unchecked, they will challenge us all. They will not kneel. They will rise. His words echoed across the chamber, but many scoffed. Powerful empires laughed at the idea. To them, humans were nothing more than a small species struggling to survive on their single world. They had no star empire, no ancient fleets, no mighty armies. What threat could they possibly bring to the entire galaxy? Another elder, older than the others, leaned forward. His eyes glowed with memories of visions no one else could see. He whispered that humanity carried something different, something dangerous. Not weapons, not numbers, but will. A will so strong that it would break chains and ignite wars. Still, the council ignored him. They trusted their fleets, their technology, their dominance. They believed no small race could stand against them. The elders warned again. They described how humans adapt, how they learn, how they refuse to surrender even in hopeless battles. They painted a picture of a future where entire armadas would fall against Earth's sons and daughters, but their words were drowned in arrogance. The empires thought themselves eternal. In their eyes, humans were like insects buzzing in the dark. They forgot that even the smallest insect could sting. Silence returned to the chamber. The warning had been given, yet no one acted. The elders looked at one another with heavy hearts. They knew the future could not be changed so easily. It was as if destiny itself moved toward war. One elder closed his eyes and saw in his mind the fires of battles yet to come. He saw human warships glowing like blades in the void. He saw alien empires shattering before a force they could not understand. He opened his mouth, but no more words came. The council had already turned away. Outside the chamber, the stars burned silently. Ships crossed the galaxy, unaware of the storm that would one day sweep them away. On Earth, humanity was still small, still fighting among itself, still divided. Yet beneath that chaos something was building. Factories rose, engines roared, and dreams of the stars grew stronger. The elders had spoken the truth, but the truth was ignored. And so the seeds of defiance were left to grow. In the darkness of the cosmos, destiny stirred. The elders watched, powerless, as the universe laughed at their warning. But deep inside, they knew the laughter would not last. For the day would come when the name of humanity would echo like thunder across the stars, and then all who had ignored the warning would remember these words with fear. The chamber of the council grew quiet once more. The meeting ended. The empires carried on with their pride. The elders sat alone, their eyes on the distant blue planet. They whispered among themselves. One said, "It is too late. They will rise." Another answered, "Yes. And when they rise, the universe will tremble." Their voices faded, but their warning lingered in the silent air like a shadow. Beyond the stars, humanity waited, unaware of the destiny that was already written for them. The elders' warning had been ignored, but fate does not listen to pride. Fate only waits, and its time was coming. The first signs came quietly, like whispers in the dark. At first the galaxy did not notice. A patrol ship went missing near the outer rim. Reports were late. Messages were broken. The council dismissed it as a mistake, a storm of cosmic radiation, or pirates at work. But soon more reports followed. Alien patrols that entered the human sector did not return. Their signals ended with static, their beacons silent. The elders listened, their faces grave. They reminded the council of their warning. Yet again the great empires laughed. These are only accidents, they said. Humans cannot destroy patrol ships. They barely reach their own moon. But the truth was different. In the shadow of Earth, humanity had begun to move. Divided no longer, nations on Earth had united under one flag, not by peace but by necessity. Wars among themselves had taught them harsh lessons. Every mistake was paid with blood, and from those lessons they learned to fight harder, faster, smarter. Factories burned day and night. Shipyards rose from the oceans and deserts. The first warships carried steel and fire into the void. They were not beautiful like the sleek alien cruisers, but they were strong, simple, and deadly. When the first alien patrol stumbled into them, the humans did not run. Outnumbered, outgunned, they fought. Their ships were torn apart, but not before destroying the enemy. The survivors sent one final message across the stars: "We will not kneel." That message spread like fire through the alien fleets. At first the admirals refused to believe it. How could humans win against superior ships? They told themselves it was luck. They told themselves it was an error. But soon luck repeated itself again and again. Every time aliens tested humans, they met resistance stronger than before. The humans adapted. Every battle taught them new tricks. Every loss made them sharper. Alien commanders began to whisper in secret. They admitted what the council would not: humans were dangerous. Stories spread. A single human frigate fought until its engines burned out, refusing to surrender. Another human squadron rammed their ships into larger cruisers, destroying them with fire and fury. This spirit was not normal. Most species feared death. Most species surrendered when defeat was certain. But humans fought as if defeat itself was a weapon. They turned hopeless battles into legends. The elders warned again. They told the council, "Look closer. These are not accidents. These are the first sparks of a fire." But the council did not listen. They said, "We have millions of ships. They have only a few. They cannot stand against us." Yet in the hearts of soldiers across the galaxy, fear was growing. Every destroyed patrol carried the same message: humanity does not break. On Earth the people cheered. For the first time, they looked beyond their planet with hope. Their leaders told them of the great empires that had ruled the stars for thousands of years. They spoke of chains, of fear, of species enslaved under alien banners. And the humans declared they would never live as slaves. They would fight, even if the entire universe stood against them. In the void, alien spies tried to study human fleets. They reported something strange. Humans did not fight only with weapons. They fought with imagination. They changed tactics in the middle of battles. They tricked larger fleets. They turned weaknesses into strengths. No computer could predict them. No strategy could hold them. One alien captain, before his ship was destroyed, sent a final record: "They are not soldiers. They are survivors. Every one of them fights as if it is their last breath." The council dismissed the record. They said fear had blinded him. But the elders knew the truth. They remembered their vision. The fire had begun. And once fire spreads, it is not so easily stopped. In the quiet corners of the galaxy, smaller species began to whisper. If humans could fight the great empires, perhaps they too could rise. Rebellion stirred in secret hearts. The first signs were no longer whispers. They were shouts in the dark. Humanity had taken its first step into the war of the stars. And though the galaxy still mocked them, deep inside every empire a small seed of fear had been planted. The elders looked to the stars and whispered to themselves, "It begins." The news of the first victories spread quickly across Earth and then across the stars, and with each report humanity's spirit grew stronger. They had once been divided by borders and languages and endless wars among themselves, but now under the shadow of alien threats they found unity for the first time in history. Nations that once fought bitterly now stood side by side, their flags replaced with one single banner, the banner of Earth. The leaders gathered and spoke with one voice, declaring to the galaxy that humanity would not bow. Factories burned with light, day and night, skies filled with smoke and fire as machines were built faster than ever before. Shipyards rose above oceans and deserts, massive frames of steel and alloy reaching into the heavens. The first human warships were given names of Defiance, Titan-class destroyers. Their design was brutal, heavy armored, and armed with weapons that roared like thunder. They were not beautiful, but they carried the heart of a people who refused to break. When the first Titan destroyer left orbit and sailed into the stars, humanity watched with awe and pride. Alien scouts reported the event back to their empires, mocking it, calling the human ship a primitive beast. But in their private chambers the admirals whispered fear, for they saw in those ships something dangerous, determination. Humans were not waiting to be conquered, they were preparing to strike. The elders once again warned the council. They said humanity's rise was faster than any species before them. They adapt too quickly. They refuse to surrender. If ignored, they will spread like fire. The council dismissed the warning again, saying their fleets could crush Earth in a single strike, but secretly they began to prepare their own armadas to remind humans of their place on Earth. The people grew restless. They knew war was coming, but instead of fear it brought resolve. Men and women of every nation lined up to join the fleet. Children dreamed of flying among the stars. Workers gave every ounce of strength to build ships faster. Scientists worked without rest, turning theories into weapons no one had ever seen before. Every loss in battle only sharpened their resolve. Every victory, no matter how small, gave them courage. Humanity was transforming into something new, no longer a race trapped on one planet, but a force rising to challenge the galaxy. When the first human fleet gathered above Earth, the sight was unforgettable. Hundreds of ships lined in formation, engines glowing bright against the black void. People across the planet watched broadcasts with tears in their eyes. They felt for the first time they were not separate nations, but one people, one destiny. Alien spies recorded the fleet and sent images across the galaxy. The council laughed, calling the fleet weak and slow, but among soldiers whispers grew louder. Humans are dangerous. They learn too fast. They do not fear death. The elders sat in silence, knowing the laughter would not last, for war was inevitable. Soon the galaxy would see the truth of their warning. In one secret meeting, an elder said softly, humanity has declared their defiance. They do not fear us, they defy us. Another answered, yes, and when defiance spreads it cannot be stopped. In the shadows of deep space, the first human commanders tested their Titan destroyers against asteroids and old wrecks. Their weapons shattered stone into dust, their engines roared like storms, their crews fought with unbreakable discipline. Every training was real, every mistake corrected with fury. The universe still mocked, but the time for mocking was ending. Humanity had risen in defiance, and the fire was spreading. Soon their name would no longer be ignored, it would be feared. The first war began with arrogance. The galactic empires believed humanity would fall in hours. They gathered their armadas in numbers so vast that their ships blotted out the stars. Fleets older than human history advanced toward Earth. The council declared it a lesson to crush the defiant species and remind the galaxy who ruled the void. But humanity was ready. When the alien armadas entered human space, they expected surrender. They expected fear. Instead, they found resistance unlike anything they had seen before. The human fleets, though smaller and less advanced, fought with fury. Every ship moved with coordination. Every crew fought as if their lives meant nothing compared to victory. The aliens fired with overwhelming power, but humans did not retreat. They adapted. Within minutes of battle, human commanders changed strategies, something alien fleets could not comprehend. The aliens repeated the same patterns. They relied on old doctrines, but humans bent and shifted like water, turning weaknesses into traps. One battle near the red dwarf star became legend. A human fleet of only 20 ships faced over 100 alien cruisers. The aliens mocked them before the battle began, promising to end them in moments, but the humans used the star's radiation to hide their movements. They struck from the shadows. Their weapons burned through cruisers one by one, and when they were nearly destroyed they rammed their ships into the enemy, sacrificing themselves to bring down giants. The aliens were shaken. For the first time they faced a foe who did not fear death but embraced it as a weapon. Reports flooded the council. Alien admirals admitted what the elders had warned: humans fight like demons. They fight with madness that cannot be broken. But still the council refused to believe. Instead they sent more fleets, larger and stronger. The war spread across the rim of the galaxy, and everywhere the pattern repeated: humans outnumbered, humans outgunned, yet never defeated. Their ships torn apart, their Colonies burned, yet from every loss they rose stronger. They learned new tactics, they built new weapons. Every defeat was fuel for evolution. Alien commanders began to fear the human will. They whispered in secret that victory against Earth might not be possible. The elders spoke again in their chamber. They reminded the council that they had seen this destiny, that the fire of defiance could not be crushed by fleets alone, but pride blinded the rulers. They ordered the war to continue, believing sheer numbers would end humanity. They did not see that each battle forged the humans harder like steel and flame. Humanity itself was transforming, not just into soldiers, but into a force that inspired others. Enslaved species across the stars watched the war. They saw a young race standing against the greatest powers and refusing to break, and in their hearts the first seeds of rebellion began to grow. The first war was no longer just about Earth, it was about the galaxy. The humans had shown that defiance was possible, that chains could be broken, and so the war burned brighter. Humans bled and suffered, but their spirit rose higher and higher, and in the council chamber the elders sat in silence, for they knew the truth. The warning had come true. The first war had begun, and it would change the fate of the universe forever. Fear spread like a shadow across the stars the moment the first war ended. Whispers filled every corner of the galaxy. Soldiers, traders, and rulers all spoke the same word: humans. At first the great empires tried to hide the truth. They told their citizens that the humans had been crushed, that their fleets were victorious, but rumors traveled faster than lies. Stories of human defiance reached distant worlds, stories of small fleets defeating armadas of mighty empires, stories of commanders who fought to the last breath, stories of ships that rammed into cruisers with fire and rage. Soon the galaxy knew the truth, and with that truth came fear. On distant colonies children whispered about humans, as if they were monsters who could not be killed. Alien generals trained their forces with human tactics in mind, but no matter what they prepared, they admitted secretly nothing could match the human willpower. Even enslaved species who had lived for centuries under chains began to speak in hushed tones. If humans could fight, why not us? The council grew restless, their confidence shaken. Their chamber, once filled with laughter, now echoed with silence. The elders repeated their warning, but this time they did not need to argue, for the evidence was everywhere. Still the rulers did not admit fear openly. They created propaganda to paint humans as beasts without mercy. They spread stories that humanity destroyed worlds without reason, that they were too dangerous to exist, but instead of calming the galaxy, it only added to the legend. Humans became a symbol of power to some and terror to others. Fleets began to watch the borders of human space closely, afraid of what might come next. Strange rumors rose across the stars that a human fleet had vanished into deep space. Some said they were building something larger, stronger than anything the galaxy had seen. Others whispered of secret bases where humans prepared weapons that could bend space and time. The truth was unknown, but the rumors were enough to shake the bravest commanders, and in the silence of the council chambers the elders whispered to each other, humanity is not slowing, they are preparing for something greater. One elder closed his eyes and saw visions of flames spreading from star to star, not destruction, but change. Rebellions rising, chains breaking, empires falling, all because one small race chose to fight. Humanity was no longer a young species, they had become a storm, and storms cannot be stopped with fear. The galaxy watched helplessly as the legend of Earth grew with every passing day. The turning point came like thunder across the stars. Humanity had been quiet after the first war. Their fleets vanished into the dark, their worlds rebuilt in silence. The empires thought perhaps the humans were finished, perhaps they had spent all their strength, but they were wrong. Deep in hidden shipyards humans worked day and night building something new. They were not content with defending, they were preparing to strike. When the new human fleet finally appeared, it shocked the galaxy. These were not the old Titan destroyers, these were ships that bent space itself, engines that could fold the void and carry fleets across light years in moments. No empire had ever mastered such power, but humanity had achieved it in a single generation. Their ships appeared where no defenses were ready, striking deep into enemy territory, destroying supply lines, breaking fortresses, and vanishing again like ghosts. Alien commanders could not predict them. No border was safe, no world secure. The council panicked. They sent fleets to every corner, but the humans always arrived where they were weakest. Their weapons grew stronger, missiles that tore through shields, cannons that ripped cruisers apart, but more frightening than weapons was their spirit. They did not conquer, they inspired. Wherever humans struck, enslaved species rose in rebellion, seeing hope for the first time. Chains shattered as the human fleets became symbols of freedom. Humanity's defiance spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Entire worlds, once silent, began to fight back. Alien rulers could no longer hide the truth. Their citizens began to ask questions. Why can humans resist when we cannot? Why do they fight while we kneel? The elders spoke again in the chamber, their voices low and heavy. They said, this is the future we warned of. Humanity is not our enemy, they are our destiny. Some leaders demanded the war continue, others began to fear that resisting humanity was impossible. Divisions cracked within the council, but humanity did not stop. Their fleets moved faster, their banners appeared on liberated worlds, their allies grew stronger. For the first time in history, the galaxy began to change, not by the will of the ancient empires but by the rise of one young race who refused to bow, and in the silence of the void the elders watched, knowing the turning point had come. Humanity had become the storm, and nothing would ever be the same again. The great uprising began not with fleets but with whispers on distant worlds. Species long chained under the banners of ancient empires began to hear of humanity's victories, and each story was like a spark on dry wood. Entire colonies that had once lived in silence now raised their voices, shouting that if humans could fight, so could they. The galaxy had always believed the empires were eternal, their rule unshakable, but the sight of human fleets bending space and striking down mighty armadas shattered that illusion. One by one planets rose in rebellion. Factories once used to serve their masters were turned into weapons for freedom. Slaves became soldiers. The fires spread faster than the empires could contain them, and everywhere banners of defiance flew alongside the banner of Earth. Humanity did not demand submission, they offered something no empire ever had: choice. They did not conquer worlds, they liberated them, and in return the liberated joined their cause. Alien rulers trembled as they watched their armies defect, whole fleets deserted to fight under the human banner. Entire species shouted the same cry: no more chains. The council was in chaos. Some demanded total war, others secretly sought peace, but the elders knew the truth. It was too late. The uprising had begun, and no force in the galaxy could stop it. Humanity had become a symbol, a legend of hope and fire. When human fleets arrived above enslaved worlds, the people did not hide, they rose up before the first shot was fired. Cities erupted in revolt, chains broken, masters overthrown, and when the human ships descended, the world already belonged to freedom. The empires burned from within, every rebellion drained their strength, every loss gave humans new allies. The war was no longer between Earth and the empires, it had become the galaxy itself rising against its rulers. Human commanders watched as allies from dozens of species joined their fleets, bringing knowledge, ships and courage together. They formed an alliance unlike anything the universe had seen, an alliance not of fear but of hope. The elders gathered in silence, and one of them revealed the vision that had haunted them from the beginning. They had seen this moment long ago, a galaxy on fire, not of destruction but of rebirth. They had seen humanity standing at the center, not as conquerors but as leaders of a new age, and now that vision was real. The uprising was unstoppable, and the universe trembled, not at the end of an empire but at the beginning of something greater, the age of humanity. The final battle came like a storm. The ancient empires, desperate and broken, gathered what strength remained to face humanity, and their countless allies. Fleets older than mountains filled the void. Their combined power was greater than anything seen before, and the council declared that this would be the end of Earth. But humanity stood unbroken, their fleets vast, their allies many. Banners from 100 liberated worlds flew beside the flag of Earth. When the two forces met, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. Stars burned quietly as the greatest armada in history prepared for war. The empires unleashed their weapons with fury. Whole planets shook under their firepower, but the humans and their allies did not retreat. They answered with storms of missiles, beams of light and courage that no weapon could destroy. The battle raged across the void, worlds turned into firefields, ships shattered into dust, and yet the human fleets pressed forward. Commanders adapted to every strike, turning defeats into victories, every sacrifice into a step closer to triumph. Alien soldiers who once feared humanity now followed them willingly, their voices shouting for freedom above the roar of war. The empires realized too late that they were not fighting against a single species, they were fighting against the will of the galaxy itself. Humanity had lit the flame, but the flame now belonged to all who dreamed of freedom. The council's final armada crumbled piece by piece until at last silence fell in the void, and the humans stood victorious. The elders watched from afar, their ancient eyes filled with sorrow and wonder, for they had seen this destiny from the beginning. They had warned, but no one listened. Now their vision was complete. Humanity had risen, and the universe itself was forever changed. When the last council chamber fell, and the banners of Earth flew above its ruins, the elders whispered the words that would echo for ages. The warning was ignored, and now the age of humanity begins. In that moment the galaxy knew its new truth. Humanity had not conquered, they had transformed. They had not ruled with chains, but with fire and will. They had given the stars something greater than fear, they had given them hope. And as the fleets of Earth sailed into the endless night, carrying banners of freedom behind them, the universe trembled, not in terror, but in awe, for destiny had chosen its new guardians, and the story of mankind had only just begun.